Winslow here, our little mascot, which people have come to see a little bit, has had some tummy trouble since he was born. And I walk out, Janna texts, I'm here. And I've got this tube top on today. And I run to the door. There's a big pile of fresh dog
poop.
And
I just said before she went out, is that thing like sturdy?
and I said,
I don't know, I need duct tape.
I can't open the door without cleaning up what he's just left behind. It stings to high heaven. She's standing outside sweltering in 100-degree Texas heat. I go to pick him up and he steps in it. So I pick him up. He wipes it all down my arm. I run to throw him outside, come back to open the door and realize that my tit has popped out. And I said, welcome, Janna, to the house. My tit's out and it smells like dog shit. Welcome.
Happy to be here.
Happy to be here.
And I was
you
like,
are the chosen one.
I'm telling you, if there's some real life realness here.
There you go.
You just don't get anywhere else. But thank God she's an animal lover, cat lover, Kristi lover. The official introduction is Janna Garza with her book that's titled Looks Familiar.
And what do you call this kind of art? So she's a storyteller.
It's kind of unique because it's, on the one hand, it's self-portrait, and on the other, it's storytelling.
She gets into character as she writes these. I call them O.Henry meets Sex in the City.
100%.
Well, and I feel like if you're somebody that's followed some of those social media influencers who like to do makeup to dress, but you create an entire story.
World. It's kind of Tracey Ullman.
Yes.
It's kind of Tracey Ullman. Visually, like you can see some Wes Anderson in my photography style. I'm a huge fan of Greater Tuna.
Greater Tuna and Sordid Lives. As I live and breathe.
As I live and breathe sordid lives. Greater
Tuna 14 times.
Yes.
Greater Tuna
Tuna Texas, all of it. Tuna Christmas, all of it. Yes.
You might have to stay all day and we'll have a movie marathon and watch Sordid Lives.
Yeah, I could absolutely do it. So, it's, and then there's some photographers that I kind of borrow from. I'm a big William Eggleston fan. And then there's just different visual influences that I have. There's storytelling and character influences that I have. And I just kind of bring them all together.
This was based on Strawberry, and you know it. Remember Strawberry from the Missouri County Fair?
I do.
How many years ago did you actually start doing this?
I started this project in 2016. Well, maybe 2015.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Wait, had you been playing like with the whole concept?
No, I had not. I mean, I was a theater kid.
Yeah.
In the 90s, in my 20s, I did one woman show. I wrote plays and, did all of that. And then I raised kids and went corporate. And, I lived in New York for a little bit. And then I got sick. I was diagnosed with a condition called polymyositis. It is it's muscular dystrophy, but it is autoimmune. So, it's a progressive muscle wasting disease. I had to go on a regimen of steroids and chemo. All my hair fell out.
And what year was this?
This was 2015.
Wow.
Yeah, between 2015 and 2016.
Okay, so when you found out you were sick, were you starting to have symptoms that you didn't know what it was tied to?
I did. Because, see, I've had lupus for about 20 years. And I had, I was progressively getting weaker. And I just thought it was part of the lupus. I don't know how much you know about autoimmune diseases, but once you have one, you get two or three. You get two or three. They kind of cluster together. So I just thought it's part of the, lupus. I also have Sjogren's syndrome, which one of the, Williams sisters has. Anyway, so I have weak joints anyway. And when I was living in New York, I had a real hard time with the stairs. New York is somehow exempt from every ADA, law in known to man. Like, you'll have one stair that's like, 6 inches, and the next stair is 2 feet. I mean, it's insane, right? So I noticed I had a real hard time getting around.
And what year was that?
This was 2000. I was in New York from 2013 to 2015.
Okay. And doing art?
No, I worked at a product company. So I have this these dual paths that I have followed. So I've on the one hand always been creative, doing my own thing. You know, on the other, I've worked in design. And so I've always maintained a career either in consulting or product design. And that's what took me to New York. I worked for a startup called Quirky, which was heavily funded by GE. It was fantastic.
I
you
love the
know.
word heavily funded. You
Right? Yeah, you had me at heavily funded. I mean, it was a $250 million startup, like seeded with $250 million.
Wow.
Offices in Chelsea. I had an apartment in Chelsea that they paid for. It was ridiculous, right? I walked in to this like beautiful studio.
And this is my Sex and the City life.
Right. I was like, yeah, I'll do this, because most startups fail.
Right.
And I could kind of tell when I walked in, like,
And where are they today?
they went bankrupt.
Oh, okay.
But like, whatever. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. Absolutely. Had a great time for 2 years. Everybody came to visit me. It was fantastic. But I was physically challenged, and then before I knew it, I couldn't get out of a chair. And, it was like without really wrenching myself
Did
up.
you have anybody there with you, like helping take care of you? Or
No,
you were on
because,
your own?
you power through. That's
This
what
point,
we do.
you
I
probably
know.
didn't realize what was wrong.
Absolutely. And it comes on slowly. And
is this the worst it's going to be
is
ever
this-
today?
Yeah.
Or is it, is it just seasonal or,
Exactly. Like, is it this cold weather? What's the deal?
It's funny.
So-
We actually filmed yesterday, and you'll see it right before yours, but a whole thing about Kristi's health and what she went through,
About
and
functional medicine.
trying
Right?
to understand
Yeah.
the whole body's
Amen.
function.
Amen.
And they kept telling me, you just have allergies. I'd had 6 strokes and then 6 seizures and
Yeah. And
It's not allergies.
Exactly. So you go through this, you go through a thing with yourself. You go through a thing with your immediate family and your work and your whatever. And you go through a thing with the medical community, all in relation to this physical shell that you live in, right? But as strong women, we power through. And it's like, no, I gotta be able to work, and I gotta do this thing, and I got a meeting in 5 minutes, and the thing, and the thing, and the thing. If I can get my ass out of this chair, that's
Right.
what I'm gonna go do. And I was on Christmas break. We usually rent like a big house, and all the family comes. I'm in the bathroom with my mom. You know how moms do. They'll just, I'm on the toilet. She's putting her makeup on, and she sees me trying to get off the toilet, because in my apartment in New York, I had like the vanity was right there by, and I could just easily, but there wasn't any. It was like one of those like isolated toilets. Wasn't anything around. They didn't even have the toilet holder where I had nothing to buffer. And she's like, "Girl, what's going on?" And I was like, I've been having a hard time. She's like, "Have you talked to your rheumatologist about this?" I'm like, "No, I haven't."
Rheumatologist.
I did, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, for my lupus. And she's like, all right,
right.
next time you go in, you need to show her this. All right, so a couple of months later, I'm in my normal checkup. It's at the end of the appointment. I'm like, by the way, my mom wanted me to show you this. I'm having a hard time getting out of the chair. And she said, well, show me. And she immediately is like, and I could tell she knew what the deal was. And she's like, all right.
How long you been fighting this?
100%. And so from there, it wasn't like, okay, well, the rest of the week we're going to schedule this, this, and this. I went from the office to like 4 subsequent appointments that day.
Right.
X-ray, heart, this, that, and the other. Went to, the neurologist for,
Right,
when
MRI, the dye,
and
the
when
myelogram.
Yes, and when they stick the things in you and turn the electrodes on. It was either going to be ALS, MS, or polymyositis. Polymyositis was, it's bad, but it was the
best
least,
of the
the
three.
least of the evils, because the signal still works, just the muscle doesn't work.
You had to be scared shitless.
I was scared shitless. I was absolutely just like, well, good God.
And by yourself.
And I was by myself. Now, I was married at the time, but
you barely 40.
I was 45.
Okay.
I was 45.
Well, that's
yeah.
barely 40.
But I'm still like
a baby.
Yeah, I'm not ready to like,
It's when we're all still 12 in our head. Like, I've
yeah,
got all this.
Yeah.
said like, and so they took a biopsy, all this stuff, and she said, "Look, what we're gonna do is just load you up with chemo and steroids, and it's as much of an art as a science, and you might lose all your mobility in 2 years, and you might not." And so,
Lots of physical therapy.
not yet. I mean, in fact, the instructions were, lay
As little
off
as
any
possible.
physical activity for about 6 months until we can get
I
this
like
cocktail
that.
working. Right? I was like, okay, yeah. So, that set off a process. I say immediately, but within a month of that diagnosis, I filed for divorce. It's amazing how these inflection points in your life happen where,
A light goes off.
where like immediately, like you separate the wheat from the chaff,
Yeah.
okay, all right, if I'm going to be in a wheelchair, I'm not certain you're the person that needs to be pushing me around, like, I don't know about that.
When how often we compute thinking we've got X amount of time left, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden that becomes so much shorter in your
Well,
mind.
yeah, and how you prioritize, right?
Right.
Like, and things just immediately, like
Well,
there's
it's a slap in the face.
It's a real, and yeah, which probably resonates a lot with
Yeah.
you about what's, how you tap into your truth and your existence and your relationship with this physical shell that you carry around, right? So I moved back to Austin. I moved into this real cool live workspace, which we don't have a lot of those.
So were you still finishing your treatment when you went to Austin, or were you done with the
I
treatment?
hadn't started. It was right when I started it. So I came down. I was home for a week, getting situated, and going to this appointment. And then that's when I was like, okay, yeah, I can't stay in New York. I got to come back. And I took a sabbatical. Decided to take some time off work and focus on all this.
So you were there after 9/11.
Yeah. Yep. And then so I'm in the studio and I'm not working, which, I worked at a level and a scope where it was pretty all encompassing. And so, the creative endeavors I could engage in, the scope of them were smaller and the scope of my career was much bigger. So suddenly I'm not working. I'm of uncertain health, right? My prognosis for what's going to happen in the future is also uncertain,
I know, which is discombobulating.
which is discombobulating. I've left my husband of 18 years. My stepchildren are not talking to me. So there's a lot, right? That's a whole lot. My hair starts falling out from the chemo treatments.
But it has nothing to do with the pressure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Unrelated, right? So it was a very heavy time. At the same time, it was incredibly liberating.
That's literally the word
Empowering.
that just flew through my brain. Had to be.
Incredibly liberating. Like I have no constraints. I don't owe anybody anything. The only thing I got to do at some point tomorrow is get out of bed, if I feel like it. And everybody else can.
Now, are you just seeing your rheumatologist at this point, or have you discovered functional doctors? Because I discovered
Both.
functional, and that was a game changer.
Exactly, both. So at that point, I'm on a full-on autoimmune protocol, diet.
Cutting out sugars,
Yeah,
carbs, gluten.
exactly. I'm on Whole30. I'm not doing any of that monkey business, and that helps. Especially when you're on all those medications. 'Cause
Right.
they're horrible. They're awful. They're awful meds. But if you can like not consume any sugar. So I'm there, and I'm a collector anyway. I collect vintage garments. I collect vintage hats.
You're my
have-
soul sister,
right,
Janna.
I have vintage dishes. I have vintage textiles. Like, oh, here's this vintage, this like bag of French velvet from the 1800s.
And we know where it is, and we know the significance. And somebody else
Right.
goes, "What do you?" I'm going to throw the.
No. Yeah. So
Wait till she sees our vintage closet.
Oh, gonna die probably. So I've been working on mosaics and this and that, and then my hair's out, and then I'm like, well, dude, I don't really like my bald head. I mean, I guess I look all right, because I know people that like when they go on chemo, they wear a wig everywhere,
Right.
and I was like, I mean, just come on, to
This
each
is-
their own.
this is me.
To each their own,
Right.
right? But then I was like, oh yeah, I got a couple of wigs. So I just started messing around, I just started messing around. And then it just came to me, Then it just kind of started. I can't explain it, but it just kind of started. And then, like a good creative ADD kind of person, I got hyper-focused.
But creative therapy.
Yeah,
I mean, in the
absolutely.
best sense of the word.
It saved me. It saved me, because I was, and this particular, like, if you're ever on chemo, the brain fog is insane. I mean, it does feel like you're just high as a kite, And then, of course, I would add, plant herbal supplementals to my chemo to keep me from getting nauseous. I just go into Hobby Lobby. And to my liberal friends, I know I'm not supposed to shop at Hobby Lobby, but I love it. So just give me a break.
Those 50% sales.
Just give me a
what are you
break.
gonna do?
Just give me a break. I love Hobby Lobby. So I just go into Hobby Lobby with my cart.
And Mr. Green loves
And
you.
Miss,
Greenberg,
right, and I just be loaded out of my mind. And I just, I get on the phone to my friends. What are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm in Hobby Lobby walking around. So I had not been a big pot smoker before, and I'm still not a smoker, And I know it's rare, me being from Austin. I just, but edibles have changed the world. They have changed the world. I'm here for it. Anyway, it really helped with the nausea, and it just kind of helped my equilibrium and everything. And I would just get lost in Hobby Lobby. I think one of the first ones I did, there's a picture in there. It's me with this headpiece on, and it's all these like leaves and whatever.
What's the name of it?
It's Legends of the Fall, I think is the name of it. It's toward the back, the ones that are esoteric, they're not a character per se. And, I would just be in my studio and I'm just like hot glue gunning all this, like, a bird and a bird nest and some autumn leaves from the Hobby Lobby all together and some moss and the thing. I listened to Joseph Campbell's The Power of Myth. That's what I was listening to while I remember it clear as a bell while I'm doing it. I'm making some stew on the stove. I just get lost in this project. And then I was like, oh, this looks pretty cool, and I put it on my head and I was like, okay, well, I need some, I need some makeup. That'd be kind of cool. I need like a backdrop. I mean, it just all kind of happened organically. So next time I'm at Hobby Lobby, I go over to the fabric section, which I love, and I get a kind of plushy, it's not real velvet, but just kind of a plush looking fabric in the back because that adds texture.
Right.
From a photography perspective, you can tell when it's green screen. If you use real fabric, especially if it's a fabric that's got a texture to it, that's going to add a little dimension. It's going to add a little depth and dimensionality to what you're doing. And I'm like, okay, I got this. And the first set I didn't love. It kind of like, because I had gone to, there used to be this amazing costume store in Austin called The Bazaar. And they closed down after about 35 years. They're out in Wimberley now. But you could go in and buy like theatrical makeup. So, I experimented and I was like, oh no, I don't like that. So waited a couple of days, redid it. And I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, this works. And I was hooked. I was like, okay, I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing.
So would you create the character visually first and then you'd sit down and write the story, or would
It depends. Because at first there weren't stories. At first it was just visuals. At first it was just like I'm making a visual thing.
But you started photographing them
Yeah,
right out of the gate.
right out of the
knowing,
gate.
Like, I need to document this.
Exactly, right out of the gate. Like, I want to document that, like, this
and
is...
you just set yourself up in your studio with
absolutely.
your little tripod and
yeah, all of it.
lights
yeah.
and...
Yeah.
Ooh, one-woman show.
Yeah, I do everything. I'm easy to work with. I have to like, what time works for you? Y'all know how this is.
Yeah.
People showing up 30, 40
Is
minutes
that little
late.
takeoff on
No.
Farrah?
It is.
Farrah?
See, you get all these references.
Oh, no, I get
man.
She's obsessed.
Right? You
The
know.
Little Valley of the Dolls.
Yes, ma'am. See, you know, girl.
I gotta come see your studio.
Mm-hmm.
Well, who says we're letting her leave?
Oh, this
We
is
got all kinds of makeup in there. We're creating another character.
So
So it just kind of started, happening. And one of my dear friends, Mike Kahanick, I don't know if you remember him.
Yes.
Okay, so
his daddy.
yes,
Stacy was my age.
Oh,
and
that's
his
right. You and
daddy-
Stacy were the same age. Yes.
His daddy was this. I would have told you he was 6'6". I don't know how.
It could have been. I mean, might as well have
was
been.
it was like Michael Landon.
Yeah, he had Michael Landon hairdo.
He worked for my dad.
Oh, I didn't know that.
He ran sales.
Did not know that.
For the big equipment like Cranes, Caterpillar, all that kind of stuff.
Love it.
He was the most charming man,
He
and they had a
was.
place out of the river.
Yes, they still do.
Oh, they
Sharon
do?
still lives out there. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean they
Is
had this.
Mr. Kahanick still with us?
No, he passed while I was in New York. So I think 2013
Love Mike,
or
and there was
14.
another brother,
Tony.
Tony.
Tony and I dated.
And then-
when I was a freshman and he was a senior, we dated for a hot minute. But Mike and I were thick as thieves. Always were.
And his sister is where?
She is in Dallas, like some suburb out of Dallas. Yeah.
I'm sure the queen.
Yeah, she's fantastic. But Sharon she's
They were like the cleavers to me.
they were,
She'd
the
always just
Pentecostal
come-
cleavers.
Yeah.
Um,
They would always come out. She'd have these cookies.
Yes.
And I know that you kids have been playing in the river and
Yes.
get out now
Yeah.
and you can't swim for 30 minutes, but here's some lemon bars.
Yes.
I mean,
Like I will
just-
still go down there. And
Loved
I
her.
will go to what is the Pentecostal church? Right there on the corner, the Christian Center, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is that what it's called? Okay, I'll go.
That's where we went for years.
I'll go with her because I love it. And it's yeah.
When my daddy and all his partners were facing prison after the American Savings and Loan went under,
Amen.
they all found religion. I just remember
man.
at like 14 going,
It helps in a pinch.
I didn't know that Jesus was lost.
I
but
mean,
even
Yeah.
a Jew, Al Cuvette, found it.
there you go. Right, girl. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
But I remember my mother took me out of school, and at the main American Savings, the line was down the street. It was like 2 miles long.
Correct.
And it was, you were
Correct.
100,000, I guess you were protected.
Give me my cash money.
Give me my cash money. And I said, why did I get out of school? And she's like, I don't know. It's
Blah, blah,
not a
blah.
good
Yeah,
thing.
blah, blah,
Yeah,
blah,
yeah,
blah,
yeah,
blah,
yeah.
blah,
We'll
blah,
talk about it
blah,
later.
blah, blah, blah. So my buddy Mike and I, he's always been a great kind of like, muse or inspiration. And
he was a soap opera star.
Oh my God,
we were
he
little
was.
before we knew what one was.
100%. He is still a flight attendant for Southwest, and it just as
Love
glorious
him.
as he can be.
And I feel like if I saw him right now, I go, hey, it's been a hot 30 years, but
Oh, and he'd jump right in.
he'd jump right in.
He'd
and
jump
take
right
off.
in.
Yeah.
So he'd start being like, I want you to do this. You do this one. Do a character like this. That'd be fun. And I'd be like, all right, let me see what I can do, And that's where the story started coming from. And then I just like, I was like, yeah, okay. Then I kind of went from sort of like abstract, although I would still sometimes do abstract, sort of like I want to like see if I can make like the Medusa, I wanted to make that like, Caravaggio's like Medusa. I would still be attracted to just technical application abstracts, but I was like, I know too many characters and I love doing these characters. Let me try some of this. So that's where it started. And sometimes it was the visual came first. Sometimes the story came first. It really just, and there's one that I'm working on actively, but then I'm gathering pieces for like the 2 or 3 that are in the queue. And then sometimes while I'm looking for stuff, either at an estate sale, garage sale, or online at 3 o'clock in the morning, I may see something like, all right, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I got to have it. Got to have this because this is going to be something cool. Yeah.
So how long might one take you? Like, might one last 3 months? Might one pop out in 3 days?
Maybe both.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It could be like, and then sometimes I'll be. Because when you're shooting, I mean, and you guys know this from the work that you do here, like setting up the lights and the thing and the thing and the thing, it all kind of like, that's a lot of work. So if you've got everything set up and you've got
my favorite one.
a base of makeup on, it's like, okay, well, while I'm got all this, is there another one I could just pop out real quick? And one of my favorites came, it wasn't my favorite at the time. It's one of the Western Sizzlers, the blonde Western Sizzler. I had done some other shot before, and I was like, all right, well, I got my wig cap on and whatever. What else can I do? Mm-hmm. And I have not a large collection because I've kind of gotten rid of them over the year, but I still have 2 or 3 really cool HBRC Western shirts, that are vintage, that gabardine vintage with the stitching.
That Yoakam.
100%, right? And I was like, well, let me just put one of these on. Like,
Dwight Yoakam put APB out. His have been missing.
Oh.
And Kinky Friedman.
And I was like, oh yeah, I have that like horse, medallion necklace. Let me put that on. And it was a long necklace I had, but it's like, I'll just pull it to the back. And I kind of like put my eyelashes on. And I had gotten this kind of alligator print, faux leather upholstery fabric from Hobby Lobby. And I put it on the backdrop. And I just like took a quick picture. And when they came out, I was like, oh my God, this looks like, some kind of, like the proprietor at Western Sizzler, this woman would just like have her picture up. And so I just like kind of, wrote a little story. Actually, I didn't start out with much of a story, but I framed her. There was this art fair that I did, and I framed her with this like over the top Western frame. And she sold just like that,
Well, that was kind of going to be my next train of thought is like, how have you been able to take what is a brilliant creative outlet and form of therapy for you and monetize this?
It's weird because I didn't start out to monetize it. I was just like feeling my feels, like this is just like, who knows where I'm going to be in 5 years,
Right.
Because at the time, I would ride around town and I would see people in wheelchairs and be like, oh, that's going to be me, And I'd see these people at a bus stop in a wheelchair and I'd be like, what have I done? I've left my family. I'm living by myself, So there's just all of this going on. So practical wasn't on my radar.
Right.
I was just kind of doing my thing.
Did you feel like you were working in overdrive to make up for time you didn't know you were going to have?
100%.
Okay.
And I also was like, well, what's my legacy? My kids aren't talking to me, or my stepkids, who I raised, aren't talking to me.
Are they talking to you now?
No.
I'm sorry, it's their loss.
Thank you. But someone in a gallery invited me and said, hey, do you want to come, put some of these up? I was like, yeah, why not? Why not? Let's do it. And it ended up being so much fun, and even for the show, like I didn't price anything because it didn't even occur to me that like anyone would buy it. And within the first 5 minutes, somebody walked in and said, I want that. It was the boxer. I don't know if you've seen that one, and that was a whole lot of fun to make. I ordered these prosthetics from London, some theater company. And I learned how to apply them on YouTube. You can learn anything in the world.
An 8-year-old can do it better.
100%. You could do brain surgery based on like learning it on YouTube. I swear to God. Like, if you focus.
I think we should start collaborating and come spend
I would.
a couple days in Austin
I would.
and do.
Or I'd come here. I'd do y'all in a heartbeat. Yeah.
That would be so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because just the way you're talking about it now is I have this burning, dying passion for art, and I've dabbled just enough to know that I'd get really hooked, and I can apply myself to tactile things and get things done to run a business, but I've never given myself fully to the creative aspect of what I want to do.
It's
And
so fun.
You feed that fuel for me
It
in a
is so
dangerous
fun.
way.
So as I'm going about all this, somebody just immediately, like within the first 20 minutes of the show, walks in and says, I want to buy that. It's like, oh, well, how much you want for it? And I was like, I don't know. But I'm enough of a businesswoman, because of my career work that I do. I'm not just like, well, whatever you think. I'm not that person.
Right.
I'm like, let me get back to you, So I take a couple of days of, and then I come up with a price. And then I'm off to the races. It's like, oh yeah, okay. People, what I found, which I love, is some of these characters really resonate with people. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh my God, that reminds me of my aunt, or I used to work with a guy like that, or that's so-and-so, like they they evoke some inflection point in their memory.
Mhm.
Just like, everyday life, you're walking through and you have a smell or a taste or something that like will bring you back to a time in your life where like, oh my God, it's just like it was yesterday. I remember.
And maybe
it.
it was a happier time for
And,
you.
and maybe
or-
it was,
right.
or there was this person was just such a, like maybe it was your bus driver or the lunch lady or who knows, right? But like it brings you back to a point in time in your life where like, and it's that joy that I see, that it brings people. And I think one of the things that I didn't ever anticipate that would even be a thing, but at an art show, especially if it's like, the East Austin studio tour where just a ton of people are coming through. And, it's one thing if somebody's coming to see my work because they know me or they've heard of my work or whatever, but you get, Gen Pop folks coming through just to see art. And when they're looking at all this, and the moment that they realize it's the same person,
Right.
and I'm sitting there, it's just gold.
I mean, I just
It's
got
right.
goosebumps everywhere. Because
It's just freaking gold, because even though like I'll have Janna Garza, self-portrait, you don't read, nobody reads signs,
But, I guess the closest person to doing what you've done, which is, I would call storytelling art, is like an Ashley Longshore.
Yeah.
Love.
I had to tag you when I saw her.
I
love
I
her.
remember her when I lived in
I
New
love her.
Orleans.
Yeah, I would go to her place in New Orleans, and it just tickled me to death that I could go to her studio in New
so
York.
I found my favorite character, and I feel it's Bobby Broussard.
Shut up! I love Bobby Broussard.
I mean,
Can I just read a little bit about Bobby Broussard? And I may get worked up because
Please do.
I feel
Please
I've had
do.
6 strokes, but I feel like I know Bobby Broussard.
Please do.
Bobby Broussard, tough as nails, roughneck, works on a platform offshore, 4 on, 4 off. Blew his knee out of the state playoffs, but managed to do a pickoff at the 5-yard line and run the ball all the way back for one of the most glorious touchdowns in high school playoff history. Those days are long gone. But get a few cold ones in him, and you'll get the replay. Just like y'all are in the field house on Monday morning watching the replay. He held the state record for rushing yards for almost 2 years, only recently dethroned by one of his nephews, Billy Bickle Broussard. Still a matter of pride that the record is held in the family, though. He's on day 2 of his 4 off, and he's going to go down to the ice house tonight and get lit up like a carnival midway. 2 weeks ago, they had to cut him off because he played My Maria 12 times in a row on the jukebox. The B.W. Stevenson version. Bobby D made goo-goo eyes at Maria Yannick Jones the whole time, belting the lyrics at the top of his lungs. Maria is the bartender and happily married to Dwayne Jones, who also works 4 on, 4 off on the opposite schedule as Bobby D. Hashtag go toward the light, y'all. Create to create. And I'm just telling you, telling your story and doing your thing. I mean, Texas has some characters.
I mean, especially, I didn't realize when we were growing up.
What the norm? Everybody else is considering character?
Well, I didn't realize what a distinct culture the Gulf Coast of Texas has.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew I didn't fit in, and
It
I was
was
kind
hot.
of it was hot. My parents had got pregnant in high school and moved from Central Texas down there. So my dad got a job at Dow Chemical as an operator like everybody else. I didn't have relatives.
Dow Chemical is the largest employer.
Yeah, I didn't have relatives down there. A lot of folks like, aunts, uncles.
Did you live in Walpeach? Or?
We lived in Wild Peach. Lived in Lake Jackson for like a hot minute. Actually, first place we lived was Demijohn Island.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when I say we had a beach house in Demijohn for like a year, and then we moved to a little place in Lake Jackson for about a year until we bought the house in Wild Peach, and that's where I graduated from in that house. But we didn't have any relatives down there. So I didn't, I was not steeped in that culture. And I just didn't, it wasn't until I moved away, you know, and then in my job in product design, I've been all over the world, you know, that I came to appreciate. You know, it's not until you leave a place, you know, especially that was your home, that it starts to really resonate with you. You know, I always tell people I've never felt more myself as a human being and more comfortable in my own skin as when I lived in New York City. You know, I was a Chelsea girl, Manhattan girl, like that was me to a T, but I have never been as homesick in my life.
That was
for Texas.
Those were my exact words when I moved to New York. So homesick. I didn't have any friends. I would have done anything for cream gravy and biscuits.
You can't find them. And you can't find tacos. Forget about breakfast tacos. Not going to happen. Mexican food. Tex-Mex.
Yeah,
not
Tex-Mex. And I remember calling downstairs going, I just need a Dr. Pepper. And do y'all have Rotel and a block of Velveeta?
You can't, forget about queso or nachos. Nachos are not going to happen. You're not going to get a nacho in New York City.
No.
You might get something that they call a nacho, but it's not going to be a nacho.
They delivered something and had garnishing. I was like, do I need to come down there?
They're going to have olives on it.
Yeah.
No. It's going to be real gross. Yeah.
And you couldn't get grits.
Oh, it's not going to happen.
Well, Texas is happy to have you back, both of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's your go-to advice?
Yeah, my go-to advice, and you know, I'm proud to say that a couple of people have come back to me years later and thanked me for this bit of advice. Is anything that you're thinking about doing in the back of your mind, whether it's going back to school, picking up a paintbrush, you know, whatever, getting your real estate license, whatever it is, and you're like, it's too late, whatever. You know, you're going to turn 40 or 50 or 60 or 70. Time's going to march on, whether you do that or not.
Right.
So just do it. Like, it doesn't matter. So if the scope of what you're doing is your neighborhood, your street, your city, your state, the U.S. or the world, it doesn't matter. Like, the reach of your impact is much less of a focus. Then just do it. Just do it.
On that note, thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
We're so happy to have you here, and look out for more creative talent from Janna with us, because I have a lot of things in my mind.
I may have to slide some money over the table to make sure Lucy Lips gets
reprieve.
Gets in there. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
That'd be fantastic.
Well, that being said, say goodnight, Lucy.
Good night, Lucy.
Good night, Lucy.
Good night, Lucy.